Hello everyone, Hi GPS here. In this video I'll talk a bit about what happened with Creators.TF, and in the background you'll just have some footage from our April Fool's event with the Tiny Desk Engineer and the man-machine modes where everybody was a robot. So this whole project started with Tyler McVicker. I think he posted a video or something that if you wanted to be part of Creators or something you could send him an email. And then I talked to him on Twitter. We had a little bit back and forth, and then on November the 14th in 2019, he said he got something cooking that I might want to be a part of, and it was a community celebration. I pushed for my custom weapons server. He thought it was custom weapons, but it was just, you know, Balancemod. But whatever. We had a bit back and forth, and I ended up joining the Creators team after their first updates. I wasn't around for the very first update they did, but I was very much a part of the Half-Life theme update, and that sort of thing was when I joined. So I primarily just took care of the weapon designs for the most part, working with a couple of others. There was also a lot of like drama surrounding Creators.TF, which I don't really get because I've been running, you know, Balancemod for a long time and we have had zero drama of that kind. It just shows like these projects can really vary depending on what people are at the top and their like social muscles and what their true goal is, which was very interesting. So I think I'll just talk about a little bit my role and what happened from my point of view. So in the beginning there was, we had a pretty large team actually. It was pretty huge because Tyler was backing it and he had a huge following and all that stuff. So when I was designing the weapons, I spent so much time for the, I made the shotgun, and yeah, originally I just made the thumper shotgun, I think. That was my first weapon that I designed. And I spent so much time making it deploy, reload, and shoot at the same time as the Half-Life 1 shotgun, and no one gave a shit. So that was fun that nobody like realized how much time and effort I went into that. But you know, it was a pretty decent shotgun. It sort of fit in TF2 as like a long mid-range shotgun that was kind of good, but also bad in certain situations. And then all the other weapons that weren't designed by me were kind of bad until I had a look at them and made them good. So you're welcome, everybody who played with that. So you see, there's nothing wrong with my confidence because, you know, having done Balancemod for a while, I forgot to check out how long it is, but it's been a while too. Definitely has me an edge there, like understanding what sort of new weapons we can have in the game when we're following like the philosophy that Valve uses. So back to Creators. There was a lot of people involved. Like, it was a huge project. We had like people for everything, and I hardly paid any attention to anything else but what I was doing. So any kind of like internal drama or stuff like that, I generally didn't care for because it's a waste of my time. We all have limited time on this earth, and if you want to waste it on people that don't deserve your time, then that's a loss. So just keep that in mind, guys. Yeah. So I remember one of the first meetings I was talking to, or Tyler was holding like a meeting in Creators, and he just asked me, like, I don't think he really knew who I was or how old I was or anything like that, because I was definitely one of the older gentlemen in the group, being over 30 at that point. I'm turning 34 next week on the 11th of April. Be sure to wish me a happy birthday then. Maybe give me gifts in TF2 or tons of money. But yeah, he did like this really dumb joke where he asked me how much RAM I had in my computer, and I just told him like in front of everybody, like, you're not funny, like really seriously, because I was like, he was just kind of all over the place, and I think he got some more respect for me than when I just flat out told him, and then we could focus on what the meeting was actually supposed to be. So the original drive was Moonly, and I didn't have much knowledge of Moonly before, but Moonly is actually like one of our, like a fire spirit. Like he created basically the entire backend for Creators.TF by himself, and he also helped us with his website, or our website rather, like for the Balancemod launch, or the trailer rather, because I did not have the talent to set myself in making like a good web page and stuff like that. So Moonly was basically the one holding it all together because he created it, and he was I think transitioning from like a previous community where he had made like custom stuff and things, and he was like 17 or 18 at the time, so very, very young. He had like such an amazing creative drive and just so talented making all the systems. Like they weren't like super optimized or like really robust, but they worked. You know, that's kind of what you aim for when you have mods. It should just work, more or less. So while I was in this project of Creators.TF, I got to experience that people in their 20s are really flaky and unreliable, and sometimes will just do shit that makes no sense, which causes a lot of drama. Of course, you will have people who just suddenly like just say some shit that's just like totally insane and not related to anything of what we're doing. I think one of the server operators that like leaked a bunch of stuff was sort of part of like the Ku Klux Klan or some shit like that. It was a mess. And also like the leaders in Creators.TF. You had basically Moonly, who like didn't really give a shit. He was basically just kind of like, think of him as like a mad scientist, like kind of like in his bunker lab, just kind of emerging whenever he had completed like a project, and then kind of oblivious to everything else that happened inside the group. But yeah, generally like the handling of internal affairs and stuff got leaked because people are in their 20s and they're fucking dumb doing stuff because they don't understand consequence or anything, and they're like so self-important about like pretty much meaningless stuff that has no consequence whatsoever. And some like of the staff had like really combative and authoritarian ways of handling whatever sort of minor issue would come up. In just not one instance, but like other instances too, which is like very strange for me because, you know, I'm a Norwegian guy. I'm pretty much grounded. It would take a lot for us to kind of have that sort of like combative response. We're kind of just like, like GPS stands for general problem solver. I solve general problems. I don't fight the problem. I solve it. It's a difference. And then I remember I was trying to work with two other balance guys. I don't recall exactly their names, but I'm not going to out anyone specifically because that's not really relevant. And basically I tried to work with them on balance and working together, but they like never replied, and they were like so not understanding the core of TF2, where they would just like suggest stuff like out of the blue, and they wouldn't do much testing. It's primarily just me, if I remember correctly. They might have done some testing or coding, but I don't recall that they did. And then I was like, yeah, but they're not doing anything. They're hard to work with. Like, we were working against each other in the team instead of together. And it was just, sometimes you just wouldn't get replies because, you know, everything was within Discord. The developer Discord. So, I had to kick him out for incompetence. And then apparently they had said something in a meeting about, like, you know, the sensitive issues about, like, gender and pronouns or something like that, which really has no place to be discussed at all in any TF2 settings, because it's irrelevant, because we make content, and what gender you self-identify as is irrelevant. It doesn't fucking matter. You can be anything. It's not relevant. And but I don't get that, because, you know, I'm Norwegian, and we don't really have that sort of like importance on how to say, like, the self-identity. Like in the US it's very different, because everybody's like, I'm a quarter Irish, I'm a half Italian, I'm a sixth Spanish, while people in Europe just really don't give a shit because we're from here. And I think, like, this is just me spitballing stuff out of my ass, but I think like that sort of mentality that the US has with like their identity, especially their group of people that has had their like identity stolen or lost. It's very easy to like, it's very important to be an identity, because we in Europe, we have an identity. We don't even think about it. We're like, yeah, we know who we are. We're this people, and we're from this lineage, and we come from here, and we all just know it. And that creates a lot of noise when you're trying to develop stuff, when that gets discussed in meetings and turned into a problem when it really isn't a problem. And the same way of like handling slurs and people saying bad shit in chat. Like, my approach is that you ban them if they say it a lot. Otherwise, you just give them a warning, and you'd be like, yeah, don't say that shit. But yeah, internet's turning into a very snowflakey place. I mean, just look at Netflix. They have a skip button for political jokes. What the fuck? Can't say killed anymore. You have to say unalived. That's the world we live in now. Fucking snowflakes. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is, it doesn't matter what kind of gender you are when you're coding and working on stuff, because you can be anything and you can code and make something. It's the same with playing TF2. Your gender literally doesn't matter as long as you play the game and do what's in the game. So it wasn't really relevant. So after I threw those guys out for what I call incompetence because it was impossible to work with them, Tyler somehow gets the blame. I don't understand. Like, Tyler wanted them out for like the reasons of like or hate speech or slurs or whatever. But that, like, I talked with Moonly and we got him out because, like, one, they're incompetent, and two, they said bad stuff, but the bad stuff really didn't matter to me. But he gets to blame anyway, you know, because he is like the bigger figure. And like, if there's anything I know, having to deal with Reddit and trying to push and like do adverts and say good things about the Balancemod, it's like people will just make shit up, and you will get a ton of upvotes for shit that's not true, and like is like the dumbest apes that just like smashes their keyboard and words come out, and people go like, oh yeah, let's upvote that. That makes sense. So that was that. And then there was like some internal shifting. I think someone left the project for like personal reasons, you know, people being in their 20s, unreliable, like living with their parents, suddenly something changes. Or they have to move, studies, anything, you know, they're not in like a stable place where they can really like if you live by yourself and you have a stable job, like not much is going to change. Your availability will be the same, but if you're in your 20s and still studying, shit can change very rapidly. Which is to be expected. And when the project is managed by said people, well, then things fall apart, which I kind of saw immediately. So yeah, and then I decided that I would take charge of the Creators.TF. I would take the director role and help steer, which I did. But then nobody fucking did what I told them to. And you can't be a leader if nobody does what you tell them to do. And then I was like, fuck it. I can't lead this, I'll just go back to balancing, and that's sort of what I did. And I remember at the time I was telling people like how Creators.TF would die, and how like Balancemod will continue to survive. And then I was told by people who have now vanished from the internet that, oh man, I was so wrong, didn't know what I was talking about, this was completely different, and now they're no longer around, the project's dead, and I was right the entire time, as I always am, because I don't talk about shit that I don't know. And if I don't know, I say that I don't know, and I think. Alright? So that's kind of like a sweet victory when you're like, yeah, this project's gonna die, I'm sure, right? And you're like, oh, look, it died. Well, I was right, but it sucks, because Creators was fun. Like the idea of having custom community content that didn't make it into official game, and like the launchers and the systems and everything. But once again, you know, it isn't casual. It isn't just click, 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 you're in a game. Oh, sorry. Click, click, you're in a server. Excuse me, there's 2 clicks of casual these days. Yeah. And then there was more of these people leaking stuff and leaking code. And oh, dude, I remember there was this other coder guy that just had like a fucking meltdown and just like destroyed himself and everything he had built. And he was a really good coder too. He like helped with the Wrangler code that we use today when we were still pretty frustrated. And he was like so good at coding, but he was like doing drugs and having fucking like made problems where there was none. In Norway, we call that making black paint. It's like you're just mixing all the shit together, and it turns out, you know, like black hatred instead of like whatever color you want to make. So yeah, the leadership in Creators.TF was pretty combative and not very tempered. They would usually fight instead of solving, from what I remember. There was a lot of meetings I wasn't a part of. We also had these long meetings that was structured, but they dragged on forever, and it's a lot of people in that meeting, people who had literally nothing there to do. They were like moderators that had no impact on anything, and they would like say some shit to try and be funny, and it was just like the fucking greatest waste of time. And I was like, oh my god, why can't we just have the people that actually matter, that can actually do something? Sure, having mods and stuff like Discord mods and whatever server admins present, but they don't need to be part of the executive decisions, and they should definitely not have a voice when literally what they're saying doesn't matter. God, it was like so inefficient. So yeah, then eventually, I think like one of the problems with creators was that it bloated quite quickly. Similar to what the Valve did is like adding too many hats and weapons. So a big bar of entry was of course the custom downloads to get the custom assets, because you're competing with click. You're in a game with, you have to go to the website, you have to log in, you have to use this site, you have to use this launcher, you have to get this asset pack, otherwise you see errors. But it's really cool. We even had our own Balancemod thing, which we probably should make into like a canteen reskin or something like that, so people can still have it, those who want it. So that was pretty cool when we had that. Had like a vintage deployment of everyone playing Balancemod, and it was like 50,000 IDs or something like that had played Balancemod during the release. It was pretty good. So yeah, the Balancemod really benefited from working together with creators, because I think like all communities should be working together more or less, but there's like a huge gap between start and people who watch Uncle Dane and join his servers exclusively because he told them to. If I had the same social muscles, Balancemod would be totally different, but I'm not as likable, and that's just how it is. So yeah, and then later Moonly, like I think like one of the Halloween updates we did before the potato event, Moonly was like working himself to death basically on this project that would gain him no money whatsoever, and he made like the contracts and it was like functioning but not very well, and I think he got kind of burnt by that. And then we had the whole potato thing, which I think was like a great event, but people in their 20s fucking don't get along and can't agree on anything and decide what's best, and eventually like Potato.TF and creators, they like made this amazing event that I was really excited about. I had nothing to do with that event. Because it was all MVM and they worked it, so I was there, but I didn't really pay attention to everything they were doing or something like that. But I really like the New Zealand's. It looks way better than the fucking stupid Australians. Gold. Who the fuck likes gold weapons? Same like unusual effects. What the fuck? The effects on your hats look stupid and dumb. Like, to me, unusuals are actually worth less than the hat because it looks worse. It's like, oh, I have flames on mine. Well, it looks better without the flames, idiot. That's just my opinion, though. You are afraid to you are afraid to like what you like. You're allowed to like what you like, but I'm allowed to say what you like is stupid. Yeah. So, after the whole potato thing, it was just like it was taxing for them for the server because it wasn't really compatible. They had to like do a lot of different stuff from what I recall. I don't know the details, but the servers were lagging and stuff like that. But the amount of maps and just content and the sheer talent that went into it was pretty darn good, and it was a lot of fun just grinding the missions and doing that. I think I got like I finished 2 tours. I got like 2 New Zealands. I got like a medigun and a grenade launcher. So yeah, that was pretty fun. And then later after that, I think Moonly wanted to work on his source TF2 source project instead of creators, so he just kind of left to work on that. And then Tyler, the social muscles, he left at some point too. I don't recall exactly, but he like removed himself from the project and then removed himself entirely from TF2 to have a less successful in terms of just views. I'm not sure how happy he is with like working the way he does now with like interviews and the streams he does, but it doesn't look like the views are the same as TF2, which is understandable for when you've only done like Valve stuff and then you suddenly change content. You're doing your viewers a big disservice by doing that. Something that Total Biscuit said, that like you should stick to what you're known for and not just suddenly stop cold turkey just because you're someone in your 20s and you're unreliable and you do whatever you think is best for you. Like switching on a dime and just suddenly vanishing from the original content and the scene, which, happens. That's just how it is. So, with Moonly gone, who was the brains behind the project, and Tyler, which was the social muscle behind the project, there were some people who left as well slowly. Not because like they didn't want to work on the project, but like, people in the 20s are unreliable and stuff happened and they couldn't work on the mod anymore and they were burnt out and some didn't want to do it anymore, I guess. So then non-developers ended up being the leaders. You should never have a writer as a leader for projects like this. You need someone with the creative drive that can actually make the systems happen and do a lot of the work themselves. Otherwise, it just doesn't get done. So like you had all like these fancy roadmaps and stuff like that, and just developers were just not into it. They would rather do their own thing and stuff like that. So it was a lot of words and promises that wouldn't really be kept because there was no one with the drive to maintain it and keep it going. So nothing really happened, and then slowly, you know, creators fizzled out and died. And as did the Patreon support, and then they reached the same state that the Balancemod is in, is that nobody plays because nobody plays. Catch-22. So that's definitely a challenge we have to solve, and we're still competing with click casual, and we don't have any of the major social muscles really talking about how great it is. And we did have like when we did the Balancemod release trailer, we had like an explosive, unsustainable growth, where a lot of people just joined really fast, and then a lot of these players don't even play TF2 anymore. They kind of like moved on to something else. And it's a hard time for us to kind of grab the existing player base when they're already so established. Like you have the Uncle Topians, you have the Skylers, you have the 240 only guys, and you have the people who just play casual, who likes to torture themselves with like the worst version of TF2. So yeah, like Creators.TF lost focus, and they lost like the core. So the creators at the end wasn't the same creators as in the beginning, although some of the core members were still there. It's just that the creative talent that actually made the system was no longer there. So it's a bit sad, but it was fun while it lasted. It did bloat a lot. Certainly better than Face It, which flopped for reasons I told them why it would flop. And they didn't listen to me either. And guess what? Mr. GPS is right once again. It's 2 for 2. 2 dead communities, and I was right both times. And I told the management what would happen. They didn't listen. So, with that, I think I've covered everything. Probably forgotten something as well. But for the future of Balancemod and Mad Machines, not going anywhere. We're self-sustained. I'm paying with this out of my own pocket and with whatever funds from generous patrons or donations via PayPal or on the streams. Everything goes to just keeping the servers up and running and the website and stuff like that. So what we're planning for Balancemod 2.0, basically it's not going to be any major changes, but we will make small tweaks here and there for weapons and maybe like try some shit here and there. But Balancemod 2.0 is basically what you're playing now. We're also going to have seasons for stats. We have the systems already. I just haven't had time to like work on it because we need a kick-ass trailer, and working on those takes a lot of time. And recently for the past 5 weeks I've been like super duper busy, like more busy I've ever been in my life. There's been like literally no evening where I haven't had anything to do, you know, real life related. But that's going to end after the 8 weeks. I will have more time to dedicate to this, and that's sort of the plan. So kind of like a little break. So there will be like minor balance tweaks, stuff like that. We will have a better website, and we're also going to try and shift the focus onto how we can figure out to recruit players and keep them, because that's sort of the thing we need to do. And if you have any ideas of how we can get people out of casual and into Balancemod now that there are no custom downloads anymore, because now Balancemod is only you join and that's it, and it plays just like TF2. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I could shed some light on this. I bear no ill will to any of the guys except the incompetent guys that I fired from the team because they were incompetent. I also told them face to face in like a call, so I didn't like just type to them. I like told them in person, and then one had like a breakdown while the other handled it well, or better than the other guy. So yeah, we ain't going anywhere. We're staying. If you want to be part of like literally the best community in the world, you should join the Balancemod, because we're the best people and we're also the highly skilled. Yeah, cool. I think we'll end it there. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye. And oh yeah, Tyler promised to showcase Balancemod on his channel, which he has yet to do. Hopefully it'll cover 2.0 release. Otherwise, I'll be really disappointed.